My loving husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and to cope with the sorrow, I threw myself into my work. One day, a man claiming to be a lawyer approached me. "Your husband has submitted a request for $5 million in damages. Are you having an affair while he's sick in the hospital?" The man smugly presented photos claiming to be evidence of my infidelity, but I had no idea what he was talking about. "We've already gathered evidence proving that you're the woman who's too busy dating to care for her sick husband." I was taken aback by the man's arrogant words. What could this guy possibly know about me? Feeling as if he was challenging my entire life up until now, I decided to take the man to my home to show him the truth. Along the way, I didn't forget to give a secret signal to a middle-aged woman in the neighborhood as we passed by. "My name is Melissa, and I'm 27 years old. I currently run multiple web media platforms and make a living from it. What should I do about this?" Sitting in my living room, I mutter to myself as I stare at the computer screen filled with text. "Melissa, let's take a break." My husband Kevin comes out of the kitchen and hands me a steaming cup of warm coffee. "Thank you." I smile at my partner, who sits beside me as I accept the coffee. Kevin is not just my husband, he's also my work partner. I've always loved writing, so I started as a web writer during college. But I hit a wall after just a few months since I began without any experience. A friend told me, "I know someone else who's into web writing like you," and introduced me to a man. That man would later become my husband, Kevin. Kevin also loved writing, and he'd been a writer longer than I had. So he taught me various things, from writing skills to how to get work. Initially, we were just good work colleagues, but as we spent more time together, our relationship gradually turned sweet. Before we knew it, we became indispensable to each other, transitioning from good work colleagues to beloved partners. After graduating from college, we went into business independently as web writers, and together we started to run and operate web media platforms. As our work progressed smoothly, our relationship evolved from beloved partners to one-of-a-kind family. Now, as a married couple, we mostly work from home and are always together, both for work and in our private life. When I tell this to my friends, they're surprised and ask, "Don't you get tired of being together all the time?" But whether it's because we're on the same wavelength or something else, we actually find it quite comfortable. It's probably also thanks to Kevin's calm and gentle personality. I never doubted for a second that my life with my loving husband would continue forever. One day, prompted by a friend, we decided to go for cancer screenings. We often joked that, "We're both so healthy, sickness isn't even in the picture." But with a friend's relative getting diagnosed with cancer, we thought this was a good time to get checked. As it turned out, I was fine, but Kevin needed further testing. By this point, a sense of unease had already set in. Kevin kept saying, "I'm fine, nothing's going to be wrong." But I couldn't shake off my worry. Then the detailed test results came back. Kevin had cancer. Moreover, the doctor told us it was at an advanced stage because it was detected late, and I collapsed right there and then. "Kevin has cancer? And it's advanced?" We'd had yearly checkups and nothing had ever seemed off. Sure, he had some cold-like symptoms once in a while, but Kevin always said, "I can work from home," and never really went to the doctor. If only I had noticed something back then. Regrets kept flooding my mind, but then the overwhelming fear that he's going to be gone hits me and I can't think of anything else. Kevin was admitted to the hospital immediately, and I visited him every day during my work breaks. When I came to see him, Kevin always greeted me with his calm smile. He would even happily ask about the progress of our work that we'd both put so much effort into. Seeing his face made me think, I have to protect this job no matter what. And even as I wiped away tears, I kept working. But every time I let my guard down, the fear that Kevin might be gone consumed me. To distract myself from the sorrow, I took on a part-time job at a nearby supermarket in addition to our web media work. Days went by like this, and a little time passed. As usual, I visited Kevin in the hospital, finished my shift at the supermarket, and was on my way home. When I get home, I need to do the web work and also clean the house. As I was walking and planning out what to do next, suddenly the world in front of me starts spinning, and I sit down in a panic. What's happening? I feel sick. My vision continues to spin and cold sweat won't stop. Feeling helpless, I sit there and suddenly hear a surprised, "Huh?" A concerned person is hurriedly approaching. A gentle hand is placed on my slumped shoulder, and a kind voice asks, "Are you all right?" Looking up, I see an unfamiliar middle-aged woman looking at me with concern. "I'm feeling a bit unwell, but I'll be okay," she mumbles, trying to stand up despite her spinning vision. But the woman who catches me says, "Come this way." She almost drags me along to someplace. We arrive at a familiar suburban house. "Where is this?" Gazing vaguely at the house, the woman says, "This is my home. Rest here for a while." She takes my hand and leads me inside. Despite it being our first meeting, her warm hand oddly comforts me, and I follow her in. We sit in the living room, sipping water, and then she encourages me to lie down on the sofa. Even as I close my eyes and take a deep breath, she wets a towel in cold water, wrings it out, and places it on my forehead. She also covers me with a blanket. A little while later, my vision stabilizes and my sweating stops. Slowly sitting up from the sofa, I face the concerned woman and ask, "Can I move now?" I say thank you, and then add, "By the way, I realize I never introduced myself. Sorry about that." Upon hearing this, the woman smiles with relief and introduces herself as well. Her name appears to be Laura, and she lives here with her husband. I begin to say, "I also have a husband." But an image of Kevin lying in bed interrupts me. Noticing my hesitation, Laura says, "It's okay if it's hard to talk about it," and asks why I was sitting on the side of the road. "Actually, my husband is sick." I slowly tell her about Kevin's illness, which I hadn't even shared with friends, and how I've been overexerting myself with work to distract from the sadness. Laura hugs me tightly as I choke up and finally shed tears, saying, "It's hard, isn't it?" She cries along with me. Later, I find out that Laura's house is very close to mine. What's more, our house is apparently known in the neighborhood as the wealthy couple's house due to its size. Chuckling to myself, I suddenly remember. When I used to walk around the neighborhood with Kevin, people would often strike up friendly conversations with us. It feels like things have become distant since Kevin got hospitalized. Laura tells me, "People thought you two had separated and didn't know how to approach you." Through meeting Laura, my days slowly start to change. I get to know the neighbors I'd previously avoided, and we start gathering at our houses for tea. And every time I struggle to watch Kevin's health deteriorate, Laura is always there to hold my hand and encourage me with her warm touch. Then, one day, Kevin received permission for a temporary return home, marking a long-awaited moment. A temporary return home. These words signal the last moments we'll get to spend with Kevin. I decided to make the most of this time and fill it with smiles. "So Kevin, now that you're home, is there anything special you want to do?" First thing he says, "I'd like to see Laura." While Kevin was hospitalized, I had told him how Laura and the neighbors had been taking good care of me during my daily visits. To fulfill Kevin's wish, I let Laura know we'd be stopping by. On our way, A quick glance at Kevin revealed a certain resolve in his face as he stared straight ahead. We arrive at Laura's, who welcomes us with her ever-present warm smile. She takes Kevin's hand and says, "You really are loved." Her eyes meeting mine as she smiles. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I tell Kevin, well, you know, our eyes meeting, his face a mix of laughter and tears. During a break in the conversation, as I'm about to head back to the living room from the restroom, I overhear Kevin's earnest voice from the other side of the door. I listen closely and realize he's talking about me. "Please look after Melissa when I'm gone." Hearing those words, I felt a stinging pain at the back of my nose and realized tears were falling. So that's why Kevin wanted to come here. Hearing Laura's gentle, "Of course." I couldn't stop my tears. Not much later, my husband Kevin drew his last breath. While I was prepared for it, the sense of loss hit me harder than I had imagined. Laura and our neighbors kept encouraging me during my grief. After some time had passed, a renewed sense of purpose pushed me to resume my career. I even continued my part-time job at the supermarket, thinking, I need to keep moving forward. And life went on, just like that, for about 2 years. As I finished my shift at the supermarket, stretching my tired body, a voice came from behind. "Excuse me." Startled, I turned around to see a serious-looking man wearing glasses. Did he lose his way? Without much thought, I asked, "Can I help you?" Clearing his throat, the man smiled softly and spoke. "I apologize for the sudden intrusion. I'm a lawyer." "You're Melissa, correct? May I speak with you?"
"A lawyer? What could he possibly want with me?"
Though I was puzzled, I agreed to listen. "Sure. You see, your late husband Kevin has left you a settlement of $5 million. I was surprised when the man claiming to be a lawyer mentioned Kevin's name. Even more startling was the word compensation, almost causing me to drop the bag I was holding.
"What? No, there must be some mistake."
"Ma'am, we have all the evidence. While your husband is in the hospital, you've been having an affair, haven't you?" The man, smirking, started to talk and pulled out his smartphone. He showed me a photo.
"What is this?"
The photo showed a man and a woman, arms linked, walking away from the camera. I must admit, the woman in the photo bears a slight resemblance to me. But it's definitely a case of mistaken identity.
"That's not me, and I don't know that man. Besides, my husband passed away 2 years ago."
I laid out the facts and was about to walk away when the man suddenly raised his voice to stop me.
"Lies about him being dead won't work. We already know you've been dating around while neglecting your sick husband."
I was stunned. I remembered the days when I was rushing to Kevin's hospital every day and working non-stop. What could this guy possibly know about me? I wondered, isn't it common sense for a real lawyer to offer a business card? And shouldn't he have notified me through documents or a phone call rather than meeting me in person? I shook my tired head and stared at the man. He wasn't going to back down. Realizing we wouldn't reach a conclusion, I decided it would be quicker to just show him. "Please come this way." I invited the man into my home. In hindsight, it was a bold move, but I felt emotionally charged, like he was negating my entire life. As I walked home with the man, I crossed paths with Laura, who was holding a shopping bag. Laura looked surprised, but understood something when I raised my palm. She acknowledged and returned the gesture. I opened the front door and ushered the man inside. Clearly thinking he'd successfully manipulated me, the man enthusiastically said, "Let's discuss the paperwork inside." Ignoring him, I led the way to a certain room. "Please come in." It was a room with a memorial altar. Pictures of a smiling Kevin, back when he was healthy, were displayed on it.
"Wait, he really is dead?"
My husband is no longer in this world. So your claim for compensation is simply impossible. Internally, she adds, he would never have done such a thing, even if he were alive. Noticing a man claiming to be a lawyer out of the corner of his eye, he mutters under his breath with a pale face.
That's not what I heard. This can't be right.
He then casually pulls out his mobile phone to check something. I subtly peek at the screen of the mobile phone from behind, and there I see a photo of a vibrant Kevin, taken before his battle with illness.
What's the meaning of this?
The fact that this man has a photo of her loved one unnerves her, and she speaks in a low voice. The man starts talking hastily, as if making an excuse. According to him, he purchased information about her and Kevin, who were known as a wealthy couple in the neighborhood, from a man claiming to be an informant. His intention was to scam them. The information said, the husband of the wealthy couple is in the hospital. The wife is emotionally vulnerable. Moreover, the informant had tried to squeeze more money out of the man by feeding him a lie that your wife is cheating on you, even providing fake evidence photos to back up the claim.
I had no idea he was dead. That guy tricked me.
The irony of the scammer himself being scammed leaves her sighing in disbelief. Then, the man who had been mumbling to himself stands up straight and looks at her with a creepy smile, saying, "Well, if I'm caught, I'm caught." A shiver runs down her spine, and she breaks into a cold sweat. Just as the man takes a step toward her. The sound of hurried footsteps comes from the entrance, and a moment later, several officers burst in, shouting,
"Police!"
The tension she'd been unconsciously holding releases, and she collapses on the spot. Thank God, they made it in time. She thinks back to the moment when she crossed paths with Laura on the street a few minutes earlier. In reality, the hand she'd raised to Laura wasn't just a simple greeting. After Kevin's death, Laura taught me the SOS hand signal, simply a raised palm with a clenched thumb, saying, "Even without words, you can say help me." Betting that the signal would get through, I used it. Probably understanding my SOS, Laura must have called the police. Staring at Kevin's photo on the altar, I silently apologize in my heart. "I'm sorry for putting you in harm's way." In the photo, Kevin seems to be smiling, as if to say,
"It can't be helped."
The arrested man, upon questioning, turns out to have committed multiple frauds before and will likely serve a fairly long prison sentence. I also heard that the notorious informant has been caught. A few days later, when I visited Laura's place with a thank you gift, she scolded me.
"You shouldn't let a suspicious man into your house."
Laura had noticed my SOS and was going to intervene but decided it was better to let the police handle it. Then, she gently taps me on the head, as if to imprint her words. "Kevin asked me to look out for you, so please don't do anything dangerous from now on." At those words, tears well up in my eyes. Ever since then, I've been living happy days, helped by Laura and the folks in the neighborhood. Today, I put my hands together in front of the photo of Kevin on the altar. Even in a world without you, there are plenty of people who help me. You can rest easy, I whisper to myself. When I gently open my eyes, there's a comforting smile that seems to watch over me. Smiling back, I say,
"All right, let's get to work today,"
and stand up with enthusiasm. So, Mom, you secretly helped with Walter's study abroad expenses without telling me, huh? Did you really support him expecting something in return with that little money, planning to rely on Walter instead of us for your old age? I don't understand how my son Hugo knows about the secret support, but I have no intention of depending on my grandson Walter for my future living. Yes, I did support him. But that was with personal money from Scott and me. You have no right to nag about it. And what's wrong with helping Walter? Deciding it's less trouble to be honest than to awkwardly deny and keep secrets, I replied assertively to Hugo's high-handed attitude.
People can say whatever they want, but Walter is about to get married soon. After the wedding, he'll be living with us, so relying on Walter would be futile.
Never did I imagine hearing about my beloved Walter's wedding in such a manner, and not even directly from him but through Hugo, of all people, mixing various emotions into a complex feeling. Yet, seeing Walter getting married is a joyous occasion for me, who has watched him grow up since he was little. Walter is at that age already. When is the wedding?
Mom, even if Walter invites you to the wedding, you better not come.
You'll be in the way. To be treated as a nuisance by Hugo, my own son, makes me wonder if he even remembers how much I've raised him. Being treated so much as a nuisance made me suspect if there really was a reason he didn't want me at the wedding.
All right, I won't go even if Walter invites me.
At that point, I decided to accept Hugo's assertion for the time being and see how things would unfold. And then, on the day of the wedding, I was visiting the venue wearing a dress passed down from my mother.
Christiana, I've brought the newsletter.
On a weekday afternoon, enjoying my usual lunchtime variety show, my neighbor came over, calling out my name loudly, to deliver the neighborhood newsletter. After a brief chat for about 10 minutes, I mentioned I was boiling water, effectively ending the conversation so it wouldn't drag on. This is because, during this time slot, the lunchtime variety show always has interesting segments on air. Today's feature was Grandchildren and Grandmothers Special. The segment explored the secrets behind the close relationships between grandchildren and their grandmothers. My name is Christiana, and I too have a lovely grandchild. In my 20s, when my husband Scott and I were blessed with 2 sons, I worked while raising them. After our sons grew up and became independent, Scott and I looked forward to spending a quiet retirement together, blessed with grandchildren, enjoying a typical happy life. One day, our eldest son's family, specifically our grandson Walter, who was still a college student at the time, came to stay at our house. He wanted to spend his summer vacation here to concentrate on his studies. Walter, who had been close to Scott and me since he was little, treated us the same way even as a college student. We were delighted by this. That evening, I made Walter's favorite dish from when he was little, my special fried chicken. Seeing his adorable smile, reminiscent of when he was in elementary school, naturally made both Scott and me smile. After dinner, while watching TV, Walter, with a serious look on his face, said he wanted to talk to us about something. It was about studying abroad. Hugo's family, my son and his wife, aren't exactly wealthy. It's not that they don't have money, but Hugo seems to have a significant resistance to spending money. Walter was able to go to college thanks to his own efforts, having seen his parents' financial attitudes. Walter must have suppressed his desire to study abroad, considering his parents' situation. However, as discussions about studying abroad became more serious at university, he found it difficult to talk to his parents about it and came to us for advice.
I want to study abroad for my education, but I can't talk to my parents about it. So, I came to ask you, Granny and Grandpa, for advice.
Walter's concern seemed more serious than we imagined, and looking at the study abroad materials he handed us, it was indeed a matter that couldn't easily be discussed with Hugo. Hugo is quite the frugal one, going so far as to say if Walter can't get a scholarship for college, he shouldn't go at all. Still, unable to give up on college, Walter managed to go by combining scholarships and the savings he had secretly amassed from part-time jobs since high school. However, the amount needed this time was beyond what he could handle on his own. Walter's grades in college were excellent, and the school offered some support, but the amount he had to pay out of pocket was far more than a college student could afford. That's why he came to us for help. After some thought, Scott and I decided to secretly use some of our retirement funds to cover the rest of Walter's study abroad expenses without telling Hugo.
even though we discussed it, are you sure this is all right? This money is for you from both of us, okay?
It's fine, it's for your sake, dear Walter. Besides, you have a future. It's better for you to use it than for us. Thanks to our support, Walter was able to fulfill his dream of studying abroad. A few years later, sadly, Scott passed away due to a chronic illness, and my two sons are now arguing fiercely about my future care. The younger son and his wife, currently living abroad due to work, think it would be difficult for me, now elderly, to move and live overseas. When this was brought up, Hugo, the elder, accused the younger of trying to push the responsibility of my care onto him.
I don't want to do it. Taking care of Mom in her old age? We've got our own family's livelihood to think about. And if we have to add Mom's care into the mix, do you have any idea what will happen?
It pained me to see my sons arguing loudly, especially since their argument was about my future care.
Both of you, I'm fine on my own. Besides, there's no need for you to fight over me.
I told the two of them that if it came to this, I would make it clear that from now on, I intended to live by myself. However, when Hugo heard my words, he pressed me further as if he had remembered something.
Speaking of which, Mom, you secretly supported Walter's study abroad expenses, didn't you? Did you support him with such small change expecting a return, planning to rely on Walter instead of us for your old age?
I don't know why Hugo knows about the secret support for Walter's study abroad expenses, but I have no intention of relying on Walter for my future life.
Yes, I did support him. But that was with personal money from Scott and me. You have no right to nag me about it. And what's wrong with helping Walter?
Deciding that it was less trouble to be honest than to deny and keep secrets, I responded boldly to Hugo's aggressive attitude.
You can say whatever you want, but Walter is about to get married soon. After the marriage, he'll live with us, so relying on Walter would be pointless.
Never would I have imagined learning about my beloved Walter's marriage in such a manner, especially not from Hugo instead of Walter himself, mixing my feelings with various emotions. Yet, for me, who has watched Walter grow up since he was little, nothing could be more joyous than his marriage.
Walter is already at that age, huh? So when is the wedding? Don't you dare come to Walter's wedding, Mom, even if you're invited.
You'd just be in the way. To be treated like a nuisance by Hugo, my own son, makes me wonder if he remembers how much I've done for him. Being treated this way makes me suspect there must be a real reason he doesn't want me at the wedding.
Understood, I won't go even if Walter invites me.
At that point, I decided to accept Hugo's assertion for the time being. And then, as time passed, on the wedding day itself, I arrived at the venue in a dress that had been passed down through my family for generations. Guests of Walter and the bride, Marion, were gathering one after another at the reception venue. Among the guests were classmates from their student days and colleagues from work, various people who came to celebrate their marriage. I was told that I had to show the invitation at the reception to enter, so I headed to the reception, where I saw Hugo. Seeing me, who was not supposed to be here, Hugo became furious with a terrible look on his face.
You promised not to come even if invited. Why are you here?
I led him away to a secluded spot in the venue to avoid disturbing the other guests with a loud voice, and we started to talk.
Indeed, I said I wouldn't come on Walter's invitation. But I am here at the invitation of the bride, Marion. I haven't broken any promise.
I left Hugo, still angry, saying that I couldn't be late for the ceremony and didn't continue the conversation, quickly leaving the spot. All the guests gathered in the venue, and the ceremony was about to start. I sat in the seats for Marion's guests, eagerly awaiting the appearance of the couple. Feeling unsettled, I caught Hugo's eye as he sat on the groom's side. Seeing me sitting on the bride's side, as I had said, He seemed confused, and despite the joyous occasion of the wedding, he looked somewhat perplexed. I decided to leave Hugo be for the moment and enjoyed lively conversations with the guests invited by Marion, sitting on the bride's side as well.
Mom, why did you come? We have to get you to leave before the reception starts.
As the ceremony began and the bride and groom appeared in beautiful white attire, the venue burst into applause and cheers. I, too, found myself unusually excited by the sight of the couple's beauty, sending them applause as hearty as anyone else despite my aging body. When they stood before the priest and pledged their eternal love as a family, I was moved, remembering Walter as a small child and marveling at how he was now getting married. It was a moment that made me feel the passage of time. Surrounded by a large gathering of guests, they exchanged a kiss of commitment. I suddenly remembered my own wedding with Scott. Celebrated amidst many guests, a day so moving I couldn't stop my tears. And now, at Walter's wedding, I find myself unable to stop the flow of large tears. To experience this emotion again, this time at my grandchild's wedding, made me think that living a long life is indeed worth it. After the ceremony ended and the bride and groom had changed, the reception was about to start. Preparing for the reception, I went to the restroom before returning to the venue, but just before entering, I was stopped by Hugo. Without saying anything, Hugo pulled me into a family room and suddenly confronted me.
Why are you sitting on the bride's side? I told you right from the start that I was invited by Marion. How many times do you need me to say it before you're satisfied?
Our loud argument seemed to be heard outside, as Walter came into the room, knocking on the door. He stepped between us, calming an angry Hugo, and I explained the situation to him. Seeing Walter enter, and a few seconds after him, Marion joined as well. Walter and Marion, understanding everything, slowly and methodically explained to a calmed Hugo why I was there and why I was invited by the bride, sitting us down on the sofa. First, why I'm at Marion's wedding reception on her invitation is because I was Marion's middle school teacher. During her middle school years, Marion was going through a sensitive period, struggling with friendships and sometimes unable to attend school. As her teacher and as an individual, I was concerned for her. I visited her house several times to listen to her, calling out desperately through the door even if she wouldn't come out. Marion, who wouldn't respond to her family's questions, opened her heart only to me. Thanks to that, I was able to understand the cause of Marion's friendship troubles. It was a misunderstanding between them, and I helped them reconcile their friendship. Afterward, I helped Marion catch up with the studies she missed during her absences from school by tutoring her one-on-one after school hours, allowing her to successfully get into her desired high school. I vividly remember her saying to me at her high school graduation, tears in her eyes, "Miss Christiana, you saved my life." Even after that, Marion often sent me letters, seasonal greeting cards at the end of the year, and birthday cards, maintaining our exchange without meeting in person. I knew from her letters that she was in a relationship. Marion met Walter in the same international student team at university. They went on dates, sharing stories about school and their personal lives, gradually growing closer until they naturally became a couple. When Walter was deciding on the guest list for the wedding, he thought of inviting longtime friends, which is how my connection with Marion came to light. Walter had intended to invite me from the start, but was mistakenly informed by Hugo that I was too ill to attend the ceremony. However, Marion had sent the invitation to me before Walter did, and she had already received my RSVP to attend, which caused some confusion. However, I had felt uneasy knowing that Marion, who had sent an invitation to me before Walter did, had already received a confirmation of attendance. So, to greet and verify the facts, the two visited my house with a gift and discovered the true nature of their unease.
Was everything Dad said a lie? And to do such a thing on our own wedding day?
Walter, having heard the story from me, was furious and suggested a plan to teach him a lesson. For that purpose, I decided to attend as a guest on Marion's side, and we made it our secret not to reveal my attendance to anyone until the day of the event. Now, as we are here at the wedding, the time has come to execute what we have thought and decided.
Dad, I'm sorry, but the talk about living together after getting married is off the table now.
We've decided to live with Granny. Walter expressed his intention to Hugo to cancel the planned cohabitation with his parents and instead live with me.
Granny is a very important benefactor to Marion. Why do you act so high and mighty, threatening not to come to the wedding and disregarding such a person?
I'm sorry to Hugo, but Christiana is a lifesaver to me. Without Christiana, I wouldn't have met Walter. I would have remained in a hopeless situation.
Granny is more important to us than you, Dad, and the others.
That's why we decided to live with Granny instead of you. Hugo was speechless and overwhelmed by Walter and Marion's unexpected declaration.
Walter, why would you say something like that? If you live with Mom, the two of you will have to take care of her. Are you sure about that?
It's not just that Dad doesn't want to live with Granny, right? You don't want to take care of her yourself, and on top of that, you think Granny has no money because you gave me some. It seems Walter's words were indeed true. As Walter lectured, Hugo's face became flushed, and his irritation became evident.
Such a thing is impossible. Me, your father, to suggest that I live relying on you guys. No, Dad, that's exactly what's happening right now. I can't live with someone like that, and I don't want to. I don't want our happy marital life to be intruded upon by someone like you, Dad.
We choose Ms. Christiana, who is more of a benefactor to us than Hugo. Hugo, with a selfish mindset of not wanting to lower his current standard of living, attempted to persuade Walter and the others. In reality, Walter and Marion had secured jobs at a foreign corporation through connections made while studying abroad. The foreign corporation offered very good salaries. After getting married, they planned to live in a spacious high-rise apartment in the city center and eventually build a large house back in their hometown. The reason Hugo and his spouse were so eager to live with Walter's family was targeted at these assets. Walter believed it was natural for a son to take care of his parents, but if a father couldn't do the same for his own parents, he declared he wouldn't take care of Dad either.
I'm sorry. Walter, my bad. So please, don't abandon me. Mom, I'm sorry. I was a fool. It was all my fault. I apologize.
It seems Hugo realized from the strong feelings of Walter's family. Family must be cherished. If not, one will be abandoned by their own family and will not be able to lead a decent life. Feeling this, being made to realize this, Hugo desperately apologized to me and Walter. But, of course, Hugo's apology meant only to protect himself, held no meaning, and not just to me, but to his own son.
Please, say no more.
Walter quietly refused Hugo's plea for forgiveness and said nothing more. However, his expression conveyed a wish that he no longer show an embarrassing side as a father. Seeing his face, Hugo understood everything and without saying anything further, just lowered his head, leaving all decisions to Walter. The issue with Hugo was temporarily resolved, and it was discussed that the upcoming reception should carry on as if nothing had happened, not wanting to spoil the atmosphere of the venue or the mood of the guests. We want this wedding to be something special. Despite everything, we want it to end with smiles. So, please. And I'm asking too. I want the ceremony to be a success no matter what. So, I want us to welcome the reception with smiles. Please, help us. Touched by Walter and Marion's earnest request, I agreed to their proposal and promised to act as if nothing had happened at the reception to avoid confusing the guests. The reception went smoothly, and Hugo sat quietly on the groom's side, watching the couple in their new outfits being celebrated by the guests around them. Various events were prepared for the reception, and the Walter couple enjoyed them while moving through the program. Finally, they walked down the aisle prepared outside, and Marion, the bride, performed the bouquet toss.
Here it goes. Catch!
The pink bouquet flew through the air, drawing a beautiful arc, and somehow, it reached me. I haven't held a bouquet since my own wedding, decades ago. Is the wedding god suggesting I find someone other than my late Scott now?
Miss Christiana! Amazing! I really shouldn't be keeping this.
As I attempted to return the bouquet to Marion, she quietly grasped my hand to stop me, indicating her agreement. Please keep it, Miss Christiana. With this, you can be happy with Scott forever. And if you keep it, it feels like we will be happy too. Marion's words gently touched my heart, and tears welled up in my eyes. Moved by my tears, Marion, and surprisingly Walter too, had tears in their eyes, creating a peculiar scene where only the bride, groom, and I were crying, observed by the surrounding guests. The ceremony continued with laughter and tears, and concluded successfully with the departure of the bride and groom. Following the ceremony, as I had promised Hugo, Walter and Marion started living with me in their new home.
Are you sure about this? It's your new home and your newlyweds. Won't I be in the way of your married life? Not at all. We decided this together, and living with you, Miss Christiana, is like a dream come true.
Marion answered brightly and innocently, and Walter, who had just returned to the living room from unpacking, added with a smile. Granny is our benefactor. If Granny hadn't provided the money for my studies, I wouldn't be where I am today, and this marriage wouldn't have happened. I'm truly grateful. Receiving heartfelt thanks from the two I've known for so long made my eyes well up, perhaps due to my age. I hadn't felt so happy to receive words of gratitude since my late Scott told me on our first wedding anniversary. Thank you for marrying me. Ever since. Perhaps, when my time comes, I will remember Scott and these two. I'm so glad they've grown into such kind-hearted individuals. It feels as if their happiness is my own. And now, Dad has also promised to send monthly allowances to Granny and help with daily life, showing his remorse. It finally feels like everything has turned out well. Since the wedding, Walter had been intentionally avoiding contact with Hugo and his wife. However, fearing that he might be completely abandoned, Hugo promised to send money every month and assist with living expenses to maintain their relationship. Still, he prepared a somewhat forceful measure, warning that if something happened to me when he wasn't looking, he would completely sever ties. May I also say something? Both of you, thank you for growing up so splendidly since those days. Thank you for thinking so much of me. Truly, thank you. I couldn't help but hug them both. Overwhelmed with joy, I hugged them a bit too tightly without realizing it. In response to their gestures, I hugged them back tenderly, feeling a breeze of happiness flow through our new home, still dotted with cardboard boxes. I've made a certain decision about living with these two. I'm going to be a powerful granny. Living so robustly that I won't need any care, not touching the money sent to me, but secretly saving it for my great-grandchildren to use one day. And I plan to live long enough to see my great-grandchildren grow up and marry someone special, just like these two.